Consider the incredible learning journey of a toddler. From birth to those few first steps, what do we often observe? Lots of stumbles, lots of falls, lots of frustration, and expressed as tantrums. Oh my goodness, the tantrums. When we as adults are faced with new and challenging learning, our brains are undergoing a similar process. Do you want to build unshakable confidence and authentic authority without operating at a constant level 10 intensity that exhausts your impact? Hey, I'm Dr. Leslie Davis, vocal leadership and communication coach. I discovered a strategy to help you develop a voice that builds trust and radiates authority without being a jerk. If you're a Christian business owner ready to learn how to build trust and authority with your voice, grab your hot toddy and a journal and let's make the shift. Neuroplasticity is the brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself by creating new connections between brain cells or neurons throughout our lives. Our brain has this amazing superpower to constantly adapt and rewire itself. This isn't just a theoretical idea, it's actually happening all of the time, especially when we encounter something new or challenging. It's in this state of challenge that our brains are actively building those new connections necessary for learning and mastering new skills. It shows us that intelligence and our abilities are not set in stone. Our brains are constantly evolving. Every time we learn something new or struggle with something difficult, we are literally changing the structure of our brains. Think back to when you first learned to drive a car. Remember that feeling of being overwhelmed? Shifting gears, checking mirrors, the pressure of the road. You likely felt frustrated, maybe even a little anxious. It probably felt incredibly complex and maybe even a bit scary. You had to consciously think about every single step. But think about driving now. For many of us, it's become second nature. You get in the car. You don't have to consciously think about every single step. You just do it. That is the beauty of neuroplasticity's work. Your brain, through practice and repetition, literally rewired itself to make this once overwhelming task feel automatic. And this same incredible ability is at play in the brains of our students every single day as they encounter new and challenging material. Understanding this helps us to frame their struggles as a sign that their brains are actively engaging in this rewiring process. Now, while challenge is crucial for neuroplastic growth, we also need to acknowledge the role of stress. When stress associated with learning becomes overwhelming and isn't properly managed, it can actually hinder this amazing ability of the brain to adapt and learn. High levels of stress can lead to anxiety and essentially put the brakes on the brain's ability to form those new connections effectively. This highlights our critical role to provide ourselves with the right amount of challenge to stimulate growth, also with the necessary support, strategies, and encouragement to navigate those challenges in a way that fosters resilience. Now that we have a foundational understanding of neuroplasticity, let's delve deeper into what actually happens in our brains when we encounter a new challenge and why that feeling of frustration often arises. To understand why learning can sometimes feel difficult and frustrating, it's helpful to think of our brain as a powerful supercomputer and with a crucial limitation: working memory, likened to RAM in a regular computer. RAM is the space where our brain actively holds and manipulates information. When we encounter something new, it's like trying to run a new complex program on our computer. This information demands a lot of our brain's RAM. It's requiring a significant processing power. Just like a computer might slow down when running a new software, our brain can feel overloaded and less efficient when we're actively learning. This feeling of mental strain, this sense that things aren't clicking right away, is what we often label as frustration. But I want to reframe that for you. This frustration isn't necessarily a negative sign. In fact, it can be a powerful indicator that your brain is actively growing. Think of it like this. When you work out, your muscles often feel sore afterwards. And that soreness is a sign that the muscle fibers are being broken down and rebuilt stronger. When our brain is working hard to understand a new concept or master a new skill, it's forging new neural pathways. And this intense activity can lead to that feeling of frustration. It's a sign that the brain is being challenged and adapting. To further illustrate this, let's consider the incredible learning journey of a toddler. From birth to those few first steps, their brains are in hyper neuroplastic state, rapidly lay down the neural networks for movement and balance. And what do we often observe during this period? Lots of stumbles, lots of falls, lots of frustration, and expressed as tantrums. Oh my goodness, the tantrums. These emotional responses, while sometimes challenging for us as caregivers, are actually a natural byproduct of their brain working so intensely to master this new skill. Their frustration is a sign of their brain grappling with a significant physical change and actively trying to find solutions. When we as adults are faced with new and challenging learning, our brains are undergoing a similar process of rapid neural pathway formation. And just like the toddler, this intense brain activity can trigger similar emotional responses within us. We might not have a public meltdown. We might, but we've all felt that internal frustration, that sense of being overwhelmed, maybe even in a flash of anger at the difficulty of our task, maybe even ourselves at not getting it right away. Think for a moment at the last time you tried to learn something completely new. Maybe it was a new technology or a new technique or even a new recipe. Remember that feeling of struggle? That is your adult toddler brain at work, grappling with the challenge of building new neural connections. The key takeaway here is that frustration is not necessarily a red flag signaling failure. Instead, by understanding the neuroscience and the parallel to the toddler brain, we can begin to see frustration as a potential indicator that our brains are actively working to make new connections. This reframes our perspective. Our goal shouldn't be to shield ourselves from frustration, but rather to recognize it as a normal part of the learning process and then provide tools and support that is needed to navigate through it successfully. This sets the stage for the next discussion of a role of emotions and how to help regulate them in the face of these learning challenges. Now that we've explored how the brain learns through challenge and why frustration is a natural part of that process, let's turn our attention to the powerful role that emotions play in learning. Specifically, we'll examine the stress cycle and how it can either enhance or hinder our ability to learn. Learning involves confronting the unknown, which our brains perceive as a challenge. This triggers the cascade of physiological responses known as the stress cycle. This cycle is our body's built-in mechanism for responding to perceived threats or demanding situations. When we encounter a challenge, whether it's a difficult math problem, a complex reading assignment, or even the social stress of performing in class, our brain activates this response. It releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which prepare us for action to either fight or flee from the situation. In the short term, this response can be helpful, sharpening our focus and providing a burst of energy. However, we'll see. The key is what happens after the initial response. To truly understand why completing the stress cycle is so critical, let's look at the wisdom of the natural world. Imagine a rabbit peacefully foraging when suddenly a wolf appears. In that split second, her entire system is mobilized for survival. Her brain doesn't engage in debate analysis. It triggers an immediate and powerful physical response. Stress hormones surge through her body, her heart pounds, her breath comes in rapid gasps, and her blood flow is directed to her legs, preparing her for immediate flight. Even her digestive system temporarily shuts down, and she will even poop to become lighter and faster. There's no hesitation, No intellectualizing, just pure instinctual action as she bolts towards the nearest safety, her hidey hole. And once she's safe, panting, exhausted, what does she do? She rests. She allows her body to come down from the heightened state of stress, to process the surge of hormones, and to recover. This natural cycle works beautifully in the animal world. But what happens when we, with our complex human brains, try to apply the same model to our lives? We as humans often diverge from this natural effective process. Instead of instinctually running to our hidey hole and then resting, we tend to get caught up in our heads. We try to reason our way out of the stressful situation, to analyze the wolf, the challenging task, the frustrating problem, without fully acknowledging and releasing that physical energy that our body has prepared for action. We might ruminate on the difficulty, worry about our performance, or try to solve the issue while our bodies remain tense and flooded with stress hormones. It's like the rabbit never reaching its burrow and continuing to run constantly in that heightened state of fight or flight. This trapped physical energy is coupled with the ongoing release of stress hormones. Without a physical outlet, it is a key contributor to the feelings of anxiety, chronic stress, and ultimately hinders our ability to learn and think clearly. It's vital for us to recognize that this is the very same stress cycle that is at play in our own lives. Think about those challenging staff meetings, those difficult conversations with parents, the constant pressure of deadlines and administrative tasks. These situations, big or small, trigger the same stress release hormones in our bodies, preparing us for action. If we can't find a healthy way to complete this stress cycle, we can become trapped in a state of chronic stress and anxiety. Recognizing our stress signals and understanding our need for physical release and rest is the first crucial step. So we know that we often get stuck in the stress cycle with our bodies primed for action, but nowhere to go. The key to breaking free lies in prioritizing movement. It's not just about calming down later. It's about signaling to your body now that you're safe. Physical movement is the primary way to communicate to your system that the threat is over and to help release the built-up cortisol that began flooding your bloodstream. Think of it as physically shaking off the wolf. Then, breathing and mindfulness can truly help us reset. So, here's the strategy. First, move to release. Then, practice mindfulness to reset. Now, here are some examples. Movement, the unsung hero of stress release. Remember, it's not just about calming down later. It's about telling your body now that the wolf is gone and that you are safe. Movement is the language your body understands when it's trying to shake off the fight or flight response. It helps release the pent-up energy and resets your nervous system. And one of my favorite and slightly ridiculous ways to do this is to be a tree. To be a tree, you literally shake. Start with your hands, and then your arms, and then your shoulders, and then your torso and your legs. Shake everything. Imagine that you're a tree, and a strong wind let go of all the tension. This might feel silly, but it's incredibly effective at releasing the physical tightness that builds up when we're stressed. It also helps to ground you, bring you back into your body. Movement is a way to help your body complete the response phase of the stress cycle and move toward calm. Of course, there are other quick movement breaks that we can use. Jumping jacks, star jumps, these are great for bursts of energy release. And then simple stretches, focusing on areas where we hold a lot of tension, like our neck, our shoulders, and our back. Even incorporating some gentle twists and stretches while we're seated. This can be a valuable tool, especially in a classroom setting. Even laughter, which triggers the release of endorphins, counteracts the stress hormones like cortisol, promoting relaxation and well-being. The key is to find what works for you and make it a regular part of your stress management toolkit. Once we've used movement to release some of that initial physical tension, we can then tap into the power of our breath. Breathing is like the body's built-in reset button. Deep, controlled breathing directly influences our nervous system, helping to regulate our heart rate and blood pressure and sending signals of calm throughout our body. This is how we move from the response phase to the calm phase of the stress cycle. One of the most effective techniques is the 4 square breathing. To do this, you inhale for a count of 4, and then you hold for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4, and then be absent of breath for a count of 4. This even rhythm quickly brings a sense of balance and control to the body. Then we have the diaphragmic breathing or belly breathing is another powerful tool. Instead of the shallow chest breaths, focus on expanding your abdomen as you inhale, allowing your diaphragm to fully engage. This type of breathing promotes relaxation and can help reduce feelings of anxiety. The key is to practice these techniques regularly so that they become a readily available resource when you are feeling stressed. Finally, we come to mindfulness. While movement and breath work primarily with the body, mindfulness helps us train our attention to regulate our emotional responses. At its core, mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment and intentionally, without judgment, observing our thoughts and feelings as they arrive without getting swept away by them. This allows us to maintain the calm we've cultivated through the movement and breathing. One of the most foundational mindfulness practices is breath awareness. Building on our breathing exercises from before, we can take it a step further by simply observing the sensation of our breath, the rise and fall of our abdomen, the feeling of the air entering and leaving our nostrils without trying to change it. When your mind starts to wander, you can gently redirect it back to your breath. This practice helps you anchor in the present and break the cycle of ruminating the past or worrying about the future. We can also practice sensory awareness, focusing on the sensations around us. For example, you could take a moment to notice the feelings of your feet on the floor, the texture of your chair, the sounds in the room. Even engaging fully in a simple activity like washing your hands. Paying attention to the temperature of the water, feeling the soap, this can also be a mindful practice. And journaling is also a powerful tool for cultivating mindfulness. When we take the time to reflect on our thoughts and feelings in a non-judgmental way, we can begin to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves. This can lead to greater self-acceptance and compassion. In addition, journaling can help us become more aware of our thoughts and our feelings in the present moment. Just write down anything that comes to mind as it comes. This key is to cultivate a practice of paying attention, which significantly enhances our ability to regulate our emotions and navigate stressful situations, shifting our attention away from the ruminating thoughts that cycle in the stress that keeps going through our minds. We've spent some time understanding how to effectively navigate the stress cycle and regulate our emotions in the face of challenges. Now, let's take a moment to connect these skills to something truly powerful: resilience. Resilience is more than just coping. It's about bouncing back from setbacks and emerging stronger. It's the ability to keep going even when things are tough. And it's a skill for success in learning and in life. So, what exactly is resilience? In a nutshell, the brain's capacity to recover from adversity, setbacks, and challenges. It's important to emphasize that resilience isn't about shielding ourselves from stress. That's not realistic, and it's not even beneficial. Instead, resilience is about developing the inner strength and skills to navigate stress effectively, to bounce back from failure, and to keep pursuing our goals despite the obstacles. And just like we can strengthen our physical muscles as we exercise, we can also strengthen our resilience muscles in our brains through repeated experience and practice. Here's where the neuroscience comes full circle. Remember neuroplasticity? When we constantly face and overcome challenges, our brains actually undergo physical changes. The neural pathways associated with problem solving, emotional regulation, which we discussed earlier, and persistence become stronger and more efficient. Think of it like building a mental superhighway for navigating difficulty. This is incredibly empowering because it means resilience isn't just some innate personality trait that some people are born with and others aren't. It's a skill that can be cultivated and developed through the brain's amazing capacity for change. How do we translate this understanding of resilience into practical strategies? Here are a few key approaches. First, praise the efforts rather than just the success. Shift the focus from getting the right answer to the process of learning and persisting. Instead of, great job, try phrases like, I see how hard you're working on this and I admire your persistence. This reinforces the idea that struggle is a valuable part of the journey. Second, model the resilience yourself. Share examples of times when you faced challenges and how you overcame them. This humanizes you and shows that even adults struggle and learn. You might even say, even I find this concept challenging sometimes, but I've learned that if I break it down into smaller steps, I can usually figure it out. Third, encourage students to reflect on their own struggles and successes. Help them analyze what strategies helped them get through a difficult task or what they learned from a mistake. This metacognitive process strengthens their awareness of their own resilience and empowers them to face the future challenges with greater confidence. We've spent the last few slides exploring how resilience is a skill that can be developed, a skill that's deeply connected to the brain's ability to change and adapt. Let's take this understanding a step further and connect resilience to two skills that are essential for academic success, also for navigating the complexities of life, problem solving, and leadership. Think about it. A resilient brain is inherently more effective at problem solving. Why? Because resilience provides the mental fortitude to persist even when faced with a significant obstacle. When you're resilient, you're less likely to give up on the first sign of difficulty. You're more likely to think creatively, to explore multiple solutions, even when you're under pressure. You're better at adapting unexpected changes in circumstances, and you're able to learn from your mistakes and setbacks, viewing them as valuable learning experiences. These are all critical components of effective problem solving. Resilience is also a cornerstone of effective leadership. True leaders are not those who avoid challenges, but those who possess the inner strength to persevere through adversity. They need the capacity to make sound decisions, even when facing immense pressure. They must be able to inspire and motivate others to keep going in the face of setbacks. And perhaps, most importantly in our rapidly changing world, leaders need the agility to adapt to change and navigate uncertainty. All of these leadership qualities are deeply intertwined with the ability to bounce back, to learn, to grow from challenging experiences with resilience. So, how do we cultivate these vital connections, problem solving, and leadership in our students? How do we give them opportunities to practice and develop these skills? Let's consider a few practical approaches. One powerful approach is to incorporate scenario-based challenges with realistic problems to solve, whether it's a simulated conflict, a situation, a resource allocated dilemma, or a complex ethical issue. We've uncovered a lot of ground today. And I want to emphasize that these concepts are not just theoretical. They're relevant to our own well-being as educators, as well as to the growth of our students. We started by exploring neuroplasticity, the empowering idea that change is always possible. We learned that challenge and, yes, even frustration are not enemies, but integral parts of the learning process. And let's be real. That includes the often frustrating process of learning new technologies. We unpacked the stress cycle, understanding that it's a natural response that we must actively complete it to avoid getting stuck in a chronic state of stress. We equipped ourselves with tools, movement, breath, mindfulness to navigate that cycle effectively. And all of this leads to resilience, that incredible ability to bounce back stronger. Remember, resilience isn't just about helping our students. It's about cultivating our own strength, our own capacity to persevere, both in the classroom and in the face of the many demands of the profession, including the ever-evolving world of educational technology. Let's be honest, teaching is a demanding profession. We face constant challenges from student behavior to administrative burdens to the emotional toll of caring deeply. And in today's world, we also face the challenge of keeping up with new technologies, learning new software, adapting to new tools. This can feel overwhelming. And it's important to acknowledge that those feelings of frustration are valid. It's crucial that we extend the same understanding and compassion to ourselves that we strive to provide our students. So let's shift the narrative, not just in our classrooms, but in our staff rooms and in our own minds as well. Struggle is a part of growth for everyone, even when that struggle involves trying to figure out the latest platform, troubleshooting, something glitchy. Validating our own feelings of frustration is just as important as validating the feelings of our students. It is important to build a supportive community where you feel comfortable sharing your challenges, offering help, and seeking support. I want to leave you with a personal call to action. Take a moment to reflect on your well-being and consider these questions. What is one small way I can practice more self-compassion this week? Perhaps it's giving yourself permission to take a break, acknowledging your own efforts, or speaking kindly to yourself when you make a mistake. What is one small, sustainable, resilient strategy that I can implement for myself this week in my own life? Maybe it's incorporating a 5-minute movement break into your day, practicing deep breathing during stressful moments, or setting aside time for mindfulness. And of course, in addition to this, what is one small change I can make in my classroom this week to foster resilience in my students? I hope you leave today not with just new knowledge, but with a renewed sense of empowerment. Take these key insights about neuroplasticity, resilience, and emotional regulation and use them to tackle the challenges you face in your classrooms, in your interactions with colleagues, and in every aspect of your professional journey. Go forth and cultivate resilience in yourself and in your students. The race is set before you. Run it well. Hey, Radiant Leader, to dive deeper into our resources and connect with a powerhouse circle of like-minded leaders, come join our free community right now over at authenticvoiceleadership.com. I will meet you right back here next Tuesday. Your voice matters. Lead wild, lead free. Stay radiant, my friend. Let your